Good afternoon, New York, and the rest of our listeners around the globe. My name is June Stoyer, and I'm the host of the Organic View radio show. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Zune, and all major podcast providers. So if you can't catch the show live, you can download it or simply use our free podcast player, which is available on our website at www.theorganicview.com. If you'd like to connect with us, please post a question on our wall on Facebook or send me a tweet at June Stoyer on Twitter. If you'd like to be on the show or would like to find out about sponsorship opportunities, please contact us at questions@theorganicview.com. Today's show is sponsored by ramvpn.com, the leading provider of next-generation online anonymity and VPN security solutions. Their architecture is unique, tamper-safe, and 100% guaranteed. They even accept Bitcoin. Listeners of the Organic View radio show can receive a 15% discount in 3-month and 6-month personal plans by using the coupon code ORGVIEW. That's ORGVIEW. For more promotional offers, please visit our website at www.theorganicview.com. On today's show, my special guest is
scientist Rich Andrews,
who is going to fill us in about the recent Colorado Pesticide Applicators Act Sunset Renewal Bill.
The Sunset Review hearing was scheduled yesterday, and so this is quite interesting because this review comes up once every 10 years, which is ridiculous to begin with, but there are so many concerns that have been expressed by concerned citizens, scientists, as well as the beekeeping community. And it's quite interesting, the outpour of frustration from the various groups, including one of the groups in particular that Rich is a part of, which is called the Colorado Pesticide Reform Coalition. They've really been very aggressive as far as trying to make suggestions that can be incorporated and actually come to fruition. So I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Richard Andrews.
Good evening, Rich, and thank you for calling in.
Yes, glad to.
Now, Rich, for our listeners, could you please just tell us a little bit of what transpired yesterday at the hearing?
Oh, yes. Yesterday in Colorado at the state legislature, the Senate committee, which is the Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy Committee, held a hearing on the Pesticide Applicators Act, which was under what's called Sunset Review. There was a good number of people showed up to testify, and I have to be pleased about it. I guess I would say that the people on the proponents of doing really solid public health and environmental protection modifications to that act probably outnumbered the pesticide industry proponents by 2-to-1 at least, and perhaps even 3-to-1. So we had good representation, and lots of good testimony, good solid testimony from a variety of people. Beekeepers, public health experts, university professors, people representing children's health, overall environmental. Anyway, so there was a lot of good testimony. The industry participation primarily consisted of what I would describe as just the status quo, leave the law as it is, and in general they would support the minimalist changes that had been recommended by the Sunset Review Agency of the state, which really don't amount to too much. So that was kind of the general overview of what happened. There was no action taken on actual legislation or any voting or anything like that, but it's possible they may be doing that in a hearing, not a hearing, but a committee meeting today. And that's just, let's say, the first step in the process at the legislature.
Do you know if by any chance they recorded the session?
I don't know whether they do. It wasn't obvious that there was no typical court reporter or even a recording machine going.
Because we found that with a number of the different meetings, whether it's EPA, USDA, for whatever reason, it's not recorded and made available to the public. And that's always been a very big concern, especially when it comes to any type of legislation concerning pesticide use, so on and so forth. So that's always been a big question. Now, moving forward, how long do you think any of the proposed recommendations will take place to implement?
You mean just in the legislative process? Is that what you're asking about?
Yes. Do you think that they're amenable to making these changes, or do you think that they're going to drag it out?
Well, I suspect that the committee will likely implement quite a few of the internal state agency recommendations, and that's pretty much been the practice of past Sunset Reviews. Probably 90% of what the Sunset Review Agency recommends gets adopted. But like I said, those things were, there was some good stuff in there, but it was minimalist. It really didn't make any substantive changes to the law. That's the one exception, maybe. There is a provision that they were going to close at least one loophole, which allowed what was called a limited commercial applicator and public applicators who currently do not require any certification, training, or education to do what they do. They just do it. That is proposed to be added, that they at least have to go through an educational process. It doesn't say they have to pass a test or get registered or certified, but it's an educational step anyway. So that's a partial good. It's just not sufficient. In terms of what the next steps are, any legislator, of course, can offer amendments over and above what the Department of Regulatory Agencies is proposing. Our best bet is probably in the House, because that is for one, it's in a democratically controlled House, where the Senate in Colorado now is Republican controlled, and just generally their main interest seems to be not burdening anybody in the industry, and they don't look at the very first criteria that they're supposed to look at, and that is protection of the public health and welfare. They look at, what's it going to cost? Some hotel operator who may have to train their maintenance staff on how not to spray, the ice holder in a hotel room with pesticides. So, or a restaurant worker spraying pesticides around foods, or whatever.
Interesting.
That seems to be more of their concern. Anyway, so there was some bright points because there were quite a few people that testified in support of much better pesticide regulation in schools and in public spaces. And when young children are mentioned and the public health, most people perk up a little bit, at least, even if they are kind of hardcore, leave us alone, laissez-faire kind of governmental folks. But so I think there's some room for improvement there. There was not much response by legislators and asking questions when people were testifying about pollinators and protection of the environment in general.
Interesting. They had nothing to say. I mean, they for the most part, some of these folks just got reelected, and you would think that they would want to hear from their constituents as far as what some of these issues are, especially since there are a number of people, number of different groups, such as the group that you were part of, which is the Colorado Pesticide Reform Coalition. And
That's
there are
right.
a number of groups that are popping up that really want to see reform take place.
That's right. Well, there were at least 3 other kind of organized groups that were there asking for real reform. Groups like the Sierra Club, the Rocky Mountain chapter, and another group called People and Pollinators Action Network, and so there are others around other than our group, and it's good to have multiple voices. So it was good to have them there.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for taking the time to call into the show and keep us up to speed with what's going on. By all means, I'd love to have you come back and just keep us posted as to how things evolve.
Okay, we'd be happy to do that. Thanks for your show. It's
you're
super.
very welcome. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been June Stoyer with the Organic View Radio Show. Have a great afternoon, everyone.